Hello, I'm Steve Evans, co-founder and director at Account Tests and the author of our personality questionnaire, the APPQ. This video aims to give users an interpretation guide for making the most of your reports. It covers both the hire and onboard and also the training and development reports. If you're looking for interpretation support for either our Pathway to Partnership or our Teams reports, please go to the video link on the respective pages of our website. If you have a report in front of you, it should look something like what you can see on the screen right now. I'm going to run through this report to assist you in making the most of your own report. So the difference between the hire and onboard and the training development reports is the inclusion of interview questions in the hire and onboarding report. The rest of the report is pretty much exactly the same and follows through the sequences you can see on the page right now. So page 3 just gives you a brief outline to the questionnaires origins and why we built it. If you want to delve deeper, the professional body's original study into what that drove us to build APPQ is available on that link. I'm also going to point you at a comprehensive user manual shortly if you're keen to see the design and content in much greater detail. As a summary for this video, APPQ is the world's only personality questionnaire that focuses on the personality traits associated with success identified by the accounting profession, with accounting specific reporting, and also comparing your candidates against the norm group of other professional accountants. So presented graphically as a summary table, here are the 14 personality traits measured by APPQ and how they relate to both the accounting traits identified by the profession and also the Big Five or Ocean personality model that users of other personality tools may be familiar with. Some of the accounting traits overlap. For example, ethics and relationships in scenarios where accountants' ethics challenged by dominant or aggressive clients, or where equally dominant or aggressive managers affect relationships at work. So let's move on to the interpretation. So on to page 5, where you get an introduction to the report, its application, its limitations, and best practice. If you have a training and development report in front of you, the opening paragraph is different, as that report is focusing on existing staff and not external job applicants. The second paragraph has 2 links, and I'll warmly congratulate you for already clicking on the first link, otherwise you wouldn't be watching this interpretation video. I would, however, also strongly encourage you to click onto the other link, that APPQ User's Handbook. That's going to provide you with a detailed look at every aspect of APP, every possible permutation of all of the scores, and a much more comprehensive introduction to what it actually does. Well worth downloading and having somewhere in your HR system. So on to paragraph 3, which keeps you on the legal and ethical side of using personality questionnaires by asserting that they are not to be used in isolation to make hiring or promotion decisions. All personality questionnaires identify respondents' preferences, not whether they recognize their preferences and can adapt their behavior to suit different scenarios and people. That's why you take your personality profile with you to your interview, with questions to explore where people have experienced situations at odds with their preferences and whether they'll be able to adapt those preferences to suit. Also, towards the bottom, we've got something around time scales as well. All personality questionnaires in the market have a time limit of roughly around about 2 years. Take a look at the cover of your report you have in your hand. If it's more than 2 years old, I would strongly urge you to ask that respondent to complete that questionnaire again, as people's personalities do shift over time. We come down the page a little onto the score ratings. I'm going to skip that over now and come back to it when we actually have a profile in front of us. The scores make much more sense when you've actually got them visually presented. But let's just quickly touch on the norm group. I mentioned just now, we developed a norm group for APPQ of worldwide accounting professionals. It's important, it matters. If we're using a personality questionnaire when you're trying to hire accountants, why would you measure them against the general population? We want a norm group for the profession, and that's exactly what we have with APPQ. Okay, so we go on over the page to look at impression management. So before we look at a respondent, first take a look at how they completed the questionnaire. So with a job offer riding on it, some people may be tempted to distort their personality profile by responding to a questionnaire in a way that presents them in an unrealistically positive light, or by actively avoiding giving away too much about themselves. and this is called impression management. So APPQ does contain a number of measures that examine the way the respondents approach the questionnaire in order to determine whether they've tried to manage their impression. However, APPQ, and in fact no personality questionnaire, can distinguish between people who genuinely believe themselves to be as good as they describe themselves and people who deliberately set out to mislead you. So if you're using this questionnaire ethically and legally, you need to avoid drawing conclusions on whether someone has completed the questionnaire honestly and openly on their impression management scores alone. So on this particular candidate, they have low scores on both. So they've completed the questionnaire in an open and honest way. If you have someone with higher scores, that's in the 7 to 10 bracket, you'll have something on your report that will be advising you to take this information into the interview and explore whether or not someone takes the same approach to their interview, in that, are they trying to evade difficult questions? Do you need to probe and just chip away at this veneer to actually find out what's underneath? So onto the personality profile itself, and we're just going to pick out some of the key features. So each trait is briefly described in terms of what a high and low score means on the right and left side of the page. How each trait relates to the accounting behaviors is also showed in that left-hand column. The respondent's personality profile is displayed on a 10-point scale in each trait. The deep red circle identifies the respondent's placement on that 10-point scale, with the paler red either side representing the statistical margin of error, which is inherent to all personality questionnaires. The 10-point scale itself represents the distribution curve of that norm group of 317 international accounting professionals. Scores of 5 and 6 are average scores. So on this particular profile, values team working to the same as most other accountants through that Vidal affiliation score. Scores of 4 and 7 are slightly lower and slightly higher than the average respectively, while scores at either end of the scale represent increasingly strong preferences towards the high and low descriptions of each trait. The user manual mentioned at the beginning of this video has detailed descriptions of each trait for low, middle and high scorers. It is important to know that there are strengths and concerns associated with every score on every trait. So more on this when we get to the strengths and challenges page in just a moment. In the meantime, we'll just scroll down that second page. Okay, so the strengths and challenges section identifies potential upsides and risks for the respondent's personality profile, grouped into the 4 accounting behaviors. Most clients use this to prepare for feedback sessions with existing staff or for interviews with candidates. It compresses the 14 traits into 4 accounting-specific headings, which people not familiar with personality profiling find valuable as an executive summary. Moving on a page, we get to a 2026 edition to these reports, where we focus on a respondent's score in the 3 personality traits that correlate with having the curiosity to explore the possibilities of utilizing AI and large language models in the workplace, whilst playing the essential role of being the human in the loop in verifying the quality of AI output and applying AI ethically and conscientiously into workflows and processes. The preferences are for high scores in openness to change, conscientiousness, and also self-discipline. How each respondent scores in each of these traits is described in the right-hand column, along with suggested interview questions and options for personal development to address potential concerns. So the last section in both the Hire and Onboard and the Training and Development report is the options for professional development. Clients use this section to identify likely training and development priorities with new hires and existing staff, typically in a feedback session with the respondent. Suggested training and development ranges from simple changes to working methods to long-term coaching interventions to reach long-term career goals, and include links to training resources for people who prefer their self-directed learning. So lastly, this video I hope has given you a quick intro. Bear in mind you've got that much more detailed manual at your fingertips as well, but we appreciate whilst you're trying to get yourself up to speed with using this questionnaire, you may well have other questions, and we are always available to help those. So you've got our contact details on there. If you just address that help and account tests to me, I'm Steve Evans, would be delighted to help. In the meantime, thank you for watching.